Hi, everybody. I'm Scott,
And I'm Luke.
And I'm Jonathan.
and this is the No Way to Hollywood podcast. Thanks for joining us tonight.
It is awesome that you are here for us. Hopefully, it's awesome for you too.
Ditto.
Oh, goodness. Tonight, we are going to try something a little bit different. We're going to start out with a movie that we all enjoy, and we're going to see what we can come up with in creating a new story in the same universe. So, after a much discussion, we have decided to go to the universe of the movie Mystery Men. If you have not seen this movie, it is a hysterical, comedical take on superheroes in a real world setting and how that all plays out. We would absolutely recommend that you go watch this movie on your own. Luke, what is it about this world that is intriguing to you?
Okay, well, I'll start by saying I don't love this movie, but there's stuff that's funny. And so I like that there's clever, weird things that go on. And so some of my favorites, and spoilers because we're building up into this world, right? I think the invisible man, the visible boy who can only be invisible when he's naked and no one's looking at him, like that's great, right? Like, how do you know, right? So there's those questions. There's also so many times where characters find themselves doing something. Why do I have these watermelon on my feet? I don't remember telling you to do that. Like that's just gold for me, right? The rest of the movie, but I like that it's a character who truly doesn't have superpowers working with other people who have like moderately terrible superpowers, right? So like, how do you do anything? How do you accomplish anything when you don't have any skills and the rest of your team is like barely holding on? So that's what I enjoy about it, and I'm excited to try and push in a new story.
Cool. Jonathan, what's your experience with Mystery Men, and what do you like about the world?
So Mystery Men is a movie that I grew up with. I mean, yeah. I mean, I watched it when it came out, and it was funny. It was just a comedy, right? It's just a comedy movie. I think it's far more relevant in a way now because the superhero movie genre is just out of whack everywhere. And so Mystery Men is now fun in another level because it's sort of satire on the genre in a way. Um, I don't know. What do I think about Mystery Men? I think it's funny. I think it's fun that um, tropes and things that you think are going to happen this way or that way are just cleverly subverted, messed with, and ultimately it's just a comedy with heart. I think so. That's what I like about Mystery Men in that universe.
Yes. One of the important things to remember is that in Mystery Men, we've got a set of characters that kind of become this close knit group of friends. And um, all of them, I mean, you've got a couple of them at the start, and then they have this tryout scene where they have all these other ridiculous superheroes kind of come together. And ultimately, they have to come together as a team to eventually go out and save the world. Um, Ultimately, killing the one true quote unquote superhero in the world and eventually catching the bad guy, yes. Um, at the same time, like as I think about this movie, I'm going, okay, so what is the jumping off point for getting back into this world? And as I think about it, it's terribly mysterious, or he's terribly mysterious. And I think the jumping off point actually comes with what I would like to call the death scene or the funeral scene for this terribly mysterious leader of theirs, um, who, yeah, is really kind of the glue that brings them all together initially.
All right, so you're saying that your starting pitch, like where we might want to go with this sequel story that we're kind of like, or just universe of Mystery Men, if we're going to do a story there, is you want to start with the death of the Sphinx.
Yes,
The,
sir.
the Sphinx has died, and you want to be at his funeral, and you're going to have the same cast of characters in a lot of ways, maybe some new ones, and whatever the story goes from there. That's what you're suggesting.
That is my suggested starting point. Yes.
Where are we going then? Like what is the goal of being like, okay, now that we no longer have the namesake for our group, who are we? Like, what's the question?
I think ultimately you have to go back to a spot where there is some of that "who are we" question, because that was one of the great questions in the original. And at the same time, like having come together already, that loss, that idea of we're not the same is brought out at the start. And so then it's the rediscovery of who are we. And I think, maybe it's this causes some of our main characters to go away, yet there's still other main characters that want to keep doing what they're doing. But ultimately, you kind of get this sense of the Sphinx being the glue that held the group together originally. And now he's gone. It becomes that a moment of legacy, the discover of legacy of how do we carry on his legacy later on in the movie. I mean, obviously, you're in a superhero movie, so any number of bad guys can come along, be doing whatever, and bad guys come and go in superhero movies. That's what they do.
Sure. I think there's a few things that come to mind. The Sphinx funeral is fine to be a starting place potentially if we're going to do the same characters and everything. Like part of one of my things was, do you just go into a totally different city in that universe and just do whatever you want to do and don't do the same characters over again? But if you're going to keep all the same characters and you're going to do something sort of truly sequel-esque, you're going to have Stiller back as Mr. Furious and all that. I don't know that I agree. I don't think the Sphinx is the glue that holds the team together. I think that as far as the movie is, let me rephrase it. The movie, at least, is held together by the trio. It's Mr. Furious and the Shoveler and the Maharaja. And every other character comes in after that and plays a role, is even a mentor or whatever, but they're not the thing that sort of holds the... There's already a team when you start the movie, right? They just really suck at it. They're wannabes. That's the whole thing. We're wannabes. We think we have some sort of God-given skill. Like, I shovel well. I shovel very well. like there's this belief in being able to do something and be somebody that's helping people with this God-given talent in a sense. And the whole question, the whole movie is like, is it real? Are any of these powers actually real? Are you guys actually those people? Or are you really just wannabes? And as they get into the world of the villain and the hero, it's like, well, they're the real deal, but they're frauds, or they're truly, or like Casanova's not a fraud. He's just really evil.
Yeah.
He's just like, or what's even his plan? He has like this death ray thing, right? What's his intention? He wants money, right? Is that what he's doing? He's doing blackmail. I can't remember the movie as well.
Yeah.
He's just I'm going to turn the thing on the city and get money.
Yeah.
And he wanted to kill Captain Amazing, and he succeeded, which was awesome. Well, I guess he didn't do it, right? The team does it. They accidentally kill Captain Amazing.
Yeah.
How many toggles in Toto? Yeah.
Toggles in Toto are we talking about? There's a certain level of incompetence, right? Like that's part of the comedy is just a certain level of incompetence, certain level of can they do it? And it's got that sort of everyman feel because these are guys who are literally sewing their own costumes together. It reminds me a little bit of The Tick. You guys know anything about The Tick and that story and that? It's kind of another. There's all these heroes in this city, and there's only some that everyone knows. And there's all these mid-tier to low-tier wannabe heroes that are constantly trying to do things, and no one cares. Or they're bad at it, or they're a joke, or they're trying to make a name for themselves. And that's sort of the same kind of thing that's going on in Mystery Men. Only it seems to be that the team that we're dealing with in that movie is the only ones who are actually... It's Captain Amazing, and then it's this team of heroes that are trying to do it, and everybody else who shows up at that like tryout is truly like another level of you're a cosplayer. You don't even have the heart, right? You don't even have the heart to do this. So there's no other.
I don't know. The Waffler looked pretty good to me.
Dane Cook, yeah, no, bad life choices.
So I feel like the deconstruction of heroes and like, are they real? Are they fake? Like that's even like The Boys. Like all these shows are like now moving there. So like, where are we going that is asking a new question or bringing us to a new perspective on people who want to be something and they're not sure they actually can, or they believe heavily that they can, but they haven't been able to break through yet. Like, what's our take on that?
That's a good question, and I would just like to reiterate the reason I'm talking through this movie again is because I would agree that I think that the major thing about Mystery Men that we need to make sure is there is it's got to be about the sort of everyman vibe, right? Like you believe, like you have heart, and you think you have a skill, and usually the skill is something very obscure, funny, or you don't see how it would apply to helping anybody, right?
Right.
But the person believes it can, right? Or even the other team members are like, I don't know about that guy's skill, but I believe that he wants to do the right thing, so I'm going to work with him or whatever, right? But I don't even know how, fart guy is going to help us, or I don't know how, I don't know how is the invisible actually going to be invisible? He says he can. I don't know, and I'll never know because I can't see it, right? Like, there's this the mystery in Mystery Men is the question of, in a lot of ways, is really, is there any skill here? Is there any team here? Is anything real here? But the big thing is that everyman vibe, right? Like there's all these big things going on, and some of that's fraudulent, some of that's like bad, greedy, or whatever. And then there's real evil that's really out there. There's real threats. That's got to be real enough, right? Even though the disco boys are funny, like the disco boys, like even that's kind of a farce. But like there's these, it's all humorous, but it's got to be that everyman thing. It's got to be a little bit of question of at least the first one was, can you do it? So is the question again, can you do it again? Because that's sort of a repeat, right? Like some of these characters aren't going to go through that arc again. They've already done it. They've already found out they're furious. They've already found out that they can throw the fork. They've already found out they're a shoveler, right?
Right. Well,
so
and to a certain
the arc for them.
To a certain extent, though, I think there's got to be you can go back to the storyline of the characters in which we can use the funeral scene as a means to show maybe some of those people splitting off, going to do either their own thing, or they're like, hey, death is real. I don't want to be doing this anymore, so I'm out.
Okay, here's the pressing question, because this is the first joke of the movie, easily, which is, why is the Sphinx dead? What happened to the Sphinx?
Well, that's terribly mysterious,
did someone pull
isn't
a gun on him? Yeah, it's terribly mysterious, but there's theories, and one of the theories is someone pulled a gun on him, and he couldn't split it in half. He got into a hole, he couldn't do it anymore, and so the gun just shot him. Like what do you know about the Sphinx that makes him? He's terrible. Or sure, yeah, we don't have his body. We have no idea what happened to the Sphinx. He's just dead. He's just gone. We know enough to know he's dead. But we have no idea what happened to his body, or like what happened to him, or anything, right?
Yeah, and I think the way that you show that is they're like, are you sure he's dead? And then, Mr. Furious is like, well, yeah, he's totally dead. And then and he opens up the coffin and there's nothing there. And then, Blue Raja can be like, mysterious, or whatever. So
yeah.
Okay, here's the other joke that I was thinking was like, Shoveler, he hasn't had anything to do in his life. Like he truly has not found another way to use his shoveling ability. So like he's going to dig the grave and that's it. Like he's done. Because like what else is he gonna do? Right? Like, because I feel like the magic of Mystery Men is like, here in this very specific context, all of your powers align and you're useful. And then you have to go back to being just normal people, which is where I think a lot of us feel, right? Like, I feel like I could do a lot of stuff, but like, it's in very specific contexts, right? So like, can we riff off of that?
Maybe. I don't know if the first movie suggests that they're all just normal people at the end of the day, like in the sense of that they're done. Like the whole idea is it is sort of a coming out in the sense of like, hey, we're now the superheroes. We took down Casanova. We did it. Now we've come into our own. Now we're like this universe's version of the Avengers. We're a team of superheroes. That's how I see the first movie ending. And so they come out and say that Shoveler's like struggling to figure out what he can use his shovel for, except digging the grave is a great joke because it's a great joke, and you can probably go a lot of different places with that, right? But that's a joke. As far as the storyline of like where the characters are and where they're going, I mean, I don't know. There's threads I want to have answered to some extent, but I'm still struggling to figure out what I think my take on this would be or where I would go with this.
Well, I mean, at some point, a lot of the story is going to be dependent on whatever bad guy we bring into this world. So Casanova's back in his place, whatever, and whatever his, gangs are just kind of fading away because they're all arguing with each other, whatever. Um, but who is it that comes out of this as a bad, like, who rises up as a bad guy?
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't want to do a Star Wars thing of like, oh, this bad guy's back, or this guy connected to that guy, or it's another Death Star. Like,
well, yeah, and that's a
But
comic book thing, but we don't need to do that.
right. I'd rather have it be something more like what we see in The Incredibles, which is just a completely different bad guy.
I mean, there's another way to take this too, which is, I mean, not that we need to take this approach entirely, but look at Marvel, look at all the different superhero stories they've done, right? Which arcs they've chosen from their comic books and from their movies to do. And you've got like the Civil War thing where the Avengers break apart because of an ideological difference. You've got the big bad who wants to destroy the universe for whatever reason, and they all have to come together and people are going to die. You've got there's other stories that we could riff on as far as a structure to the whole thing. But I mean, as far as a bad guy, I mean, the bad guy could easily be whoever killed the Sphinx, but that's almost too easy, right? Like the Sphinx death, in a lot of ways, has to be truly mysterious and somewhat benign because that sort of fits it,
yes,
right? Like there's got to be a sort of benign, everyday human thing to it where like the Sphinx got hit by a car, right? Like it's got to be something that's just like that happens to people. That happens.
Yeah.
People just die. Even getting hit by a car is too easy. Like the Sphinx died of old age. The Sphinx, um, I don't
Cancer. It's just cancer.
we don't know, right? That we'll never know. That's him dying. Like the question has to be: if you're going to start with the Sphinx dying, it has to have some sort of effect on your main characters and make them ask a question about themselves, right, or about what's happening next. Like, is it about legacy? The Sphinx died, and he left the legacy of us, but like we're not even that great of a legacy. And do we want a legacy? And what are we doing anymore? They never rise to the same heights as Casanova, right? They defeated Casanova and they've never found it again. They've never been able to do it again. Is that one of the things? Like, what's the story here? What's the thing they got to go through?
I mean, to a certain extent, it's a very easy direction to go to even just take it as oh gosh, he died, and I don't want to die. Like, it's a fear of death. I mean, it's pretty simple, but it's real life, right?
Okay, is the villain a guy who claims to be death? Like, I'm not saying that he actually will be the Grim Reaper, but this villain, or at least some part of what they think the villain is going to be this guy who starts announcing himself as I killed the Sphinx. He announces that because he's like death incarnate. He thinks he can just walk around and like bring death to people as he desires, as he needs, and he can do whatever he wants. But the reality is that he's like, I don't know. He's like he got just too close to radiation, so he's constantly radiating poison. He doesn't realize he's killing everybody. He thinks it's like his will, but really everyone who gets close to him just dies because he's a poisoned dude. Like I
yeah.
don't
So
know. There's gotta be some.
yeah, I'm thinking like Touch of Death is his name, and he's like
Death Touch.
Death Touch. Yeah, that's way better. Death Touch, and like the opposite of the or like related to the Midas Gold Touch or whatever. He's just kind of got this thing that like everything he touches is death. So he's like, I have become death.
Yeah, he thinks he's become death, and he killed the Sphinx as far as he's concerned. Or not even. We don't necessarily have to shovel. We don't have to put him in that. We don't have to put him in that corner because again, the Sphinx can just be dead, and it can just be about death. And so it can be a sort of well, aren't those characters like the Shoveler's going through a midlife crisis in the Mystery Men originally,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So we don't need to play the midlife crisis card. It needs to be more. If it's going to be about death, then what's the everyman like struggle with death? Is it just going to be really existential? Is it going to be like they've already had to get over a fear of death to some extent to fight anybody, right? To do any of this, they have to get over some sort of fear to deal with things because it got real, right?
Right.
Well, okay, if we're going to make this relevant to today, then it's a question of what do you do to try to avoid death while also trying to live, right? Like if that's the question, that fits perfectly with today's zeitgeist because we're trying to figure that out. Like, how safe do you need to play it so that you can continue to live? But at what point does playing it safe stop you from living?
Okay.
Wow. Luke just made this all profound on us.
Sure. But like, I think that maybe, and this is just a random idea that we can cut, but do you make it so that they all die at the end? Right. This is a story about this. This is a story that's actually about death to the point where they're all going to die, but it's about like dying well or something, or about going into the great, like it's about ending how everything needs to end and the sort of everymanness to ending in a way. Like, is it going to be some sort of story about that? Is that the way?
Well, my joke was going to be that they were dead all along, but that's terrible. What I don't like about the everybody dies at the end. So how are you going to end well? It like that's important in very specific contexts, but I don't feel like that's important in my everyday life. But maybe it should be.
I mean, is there one character though that could have to deal specifically with that? And one of the storylines that I'm just kind of dreaming up on the spot has we've talked about the shoveler digging graves, right?
Yeah, he seems like the right choice for that.
And now we have a villain who is killing people, and to a certain extent, like, sweet, I've got more work to do thanks to this guy. Like he almost has this place where his character goes and becomes like the sidekick to the villain, and yet at the same time knowing his true team really is the Mystery Men. But you still get this sense of, I mean, if we're using this premise where the Sphinx dies and it kind of causes our characters to think about death and, oh gosh, do I really want to put myself in death? And the shoveler's like, well, I think I'm done being a superhero, but thanks to this new villain guy, I've got a job for the rest of my life, so I'm doing okay here. And you have this sense where in the end he's going to be almost a Han Solo character who has to come back, and maybe he's the one that has to die in the end, but he's going to end up saving all his friends and allowing them to continue being the Mystery Men.
Well, okay, maybe some of this, but I gotta say this is all too grand. I think that like the more Mystery Men thing to do is that the shoveler digs the grave for the Sphinx and finds that he has this really weird sense of purpose that he's never had before when he dug that grave. And so he's going through a different identity crisis where like he was very sure the entire last movie that he was the shoveler. But now he's wondering if like his extra calling is this sense of like cemetery man, grave digger,
yeah,
like he's this guy who's about like putting people to rest and protecting the dead, like
yeah,
you know, like he's going down some sort of, and it's not necessarily because he's going to be that guy forever, but he's starting to believe that maybe that's what he's supposed to do, right? Like he's got a calling now. He's like,
right.
Digging the graves for Sphinx was really powerful. And now I realize that what I need to be doing is helping people be put to rest. People die all the time. That's the one thing that's constant. The one thing I can do to support the world is I can go and be there to at least do the work of digging the grave. And the obvious joke is that someone's like, Mr. Fierce is like, they've got like digging machines, right? Like they've got like tractors and stuff, like they get in there. And he's like, it's not the same.
It doesn't have the personal touch of the closure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I like this. And what I want out of this, because I didn't like the idea of him being a sidekick, but I do like the idea of him kind of being like, I'm cool with this guy, taking care of people and taking them out because I can then help them and their families get into the after, whatever. Right. And so he has to ultimately come to the conclusion that like his sense of purpose isn't worth the damage to people or something. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm thinking right now.
Well, and it may not be as strong as what you just said, but I mean, the easy one to do is if he can't be straight up okay with it. I don't think he can't just be like okay with the gravedigger, but he's got to have this weird sense of purpose where it's like, my role in this fight is not to go fight the gravedigger, or like the death guy, death touch or whatever. My role in this is that I need to help the people. Like he needs to come in. So before the Sphinx is even dead, you come in and he's like, there's like a fight with whatever the gang is they're fighting, or the supervillains are fighting this week, right? And there's always people who get hurt, right? There's always people, collateral damage. And he keeps on thinking to himself, we never help the people, really. Like, there's always collateral damage happening to the people, and I can't ever defend them. I'm trying to figure out, like, I've got shovel shields and stuff, but I can't always protect the people. I can't always help them get through this. We just go and we fight, and then we leave. And there's all this damage, right? And so digging the grave becomes this thing where it's this shovel thing, but it's this way of, like, trying to help the people more. And he's becoming like, I want to help the people more than just fight the supervillain kind of thing. And so that's why he's driven to that. He wants to be on that side of the equation. He wants to sort of be the I'm interacting with the people and I'm actually helping them directly. And part of the thing is, he's got to he's got to learn that part of helping people potentially in his position is to go and fight Death Touch or something like that.
I kind of want him in the end to go from being a gravedigger and feeling purpose there to like planting flowers and being a farmer. Like I want the from death to life thing.
The gardener thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
the shoveler. I mean, there's potentially some fun stuff in there. Yeah, I mean, and do you bury Death Touch alive? Can you not kill him? Because you can't get close enough to him, but you can dig a pit.
Oh.
And you can bury him in it.
Nice. Nice. So no better. They do the trap where like you dig a really deep hole and then put the tarp over it or whatever, and the person walks over it and falls in, and like that's how they take care of him.
Yeah.
Right. Although if that's their plan, right, that's really okay. That's a possibility. It's a possibility. I just think that it's at some point the shoveler, like the gravedigger, having dug the grave for death is kind of fun.
Yes.
I mean, I agree. I think it almost needs to be more of an accidental, like, oh, I wasn't planning for that hole to trap him in there, and now we can bury him alive, kind of a thing.
That's a good point. What's he digging? Like his whole film, what's he like he's digging something because he wants to dig to China. He wants to create a new gold pit. He wants to, like, what does he want?
Maybe, but I think the stronger thing is that it's too easy in a sense for the grave to be dug for the death guy. I think it's more like that's midpoint or like somewhere. It's one of those things where it's a false resolution where even if they succeed, it's a moral quandary now because like he falls in the pit and he's not dead and he can't get out. So now are you going to bury the guy alive? Are you going to kill Death Touch? And is like, what's Death Touch is like whole thing? Like if you kill him, does he win? Like a Joker kind of thing, right? Where it's like, Death Touch is like, well, if you kill me, you've just proven my point that death comes like, like they can't. And like Mr. Furious is just super pissed because he's like, we just need to bury him. Just like, let's just be done. And then he realizes the ideological problem that like if they bury him, that they can't win. And so Mr. Furious is just pissed. He just can't win.
Okay, I like this other theme that's kind of been floating in the background for us, which is like, I want to help people and I can't just like beat people up, right? So like, I feel like we need like the healer person, the person who works at the hospital or whatever, right? Who like ultimately recognizes that Death Touch, is radiated or has bad BO or whatever, right? And like solves the problem for him, right? So it's actually like a solution.
That's a new character, though. That I don't know how that's going to play into the end game. That's a new character, and they're like Band-Aid Man. And the whole joke the entire time is they can't heal anything. They can just put Band-Aids on it. That's all they can do, right? Because that's like that is Mystery Men. Like it's this character shows up, and it's like all this person can really do is bandage things.
Dude, athletic tape. That's it. It's not even a Band-Aid. Like it's.
So maybe that's a thing, and maybe that comes into play somewhere else. I don't know what Mr. Furious is going through though yet. You've got three main characters. You've got to like they have to be intertwined, all go in the same direction. They're all dealing with death touch, okay? But you got like what's Mr. Furious's thing? Last we saw him, he was finally able to like be ridiculous a little bit, be vulnerable, get with the girl, and also learn to actually get angry about something and go fight the guy.
He was also super okay with the fact, like, and maybe that's his thing of like, you know, he can't be furious unless there's some of that like personal like angst or hurt or something in his own life, like something valuable to him is going to be taken away, which is the threat we have with what Casanova does with the lady friend in the first movie, right? And is she someone that is going to be a character in this movie, or is she just gone?
I kind of like the idea that she got okay, in danger of potentially offending people. I wonder if she got like super feminist at some point, right? And was like, "How dare you have gotten all angry because I was in danger and come and save me," or something around those lines, and just like is always pissed that he's just always getting angry about things and always trying to protect her. And like the thing about Mr. Furious has always been impotence. He gets really angry and then he jumps on a car and can't do anything.
Right.
He gets really angry and he can't do anything. And the one time he does something is when he gets upset about it's the girl, right? At the end.
Mm-hmm.
The girl's in danger, and so he saves her. And so if you sort of I don't know if I want to make him too impotent again, because I don't want him to go through the same arc again. But there, like, I wonder if there's something about the causticness of anger, or like how anger riding in you all the time isn't good. Like it's killing you, it's poison, or there's not always something you can go punch, right? Like that is an easy one where you always want the guy to go punch. In Death Touch, you literally can't go punch. You can't touch him. If you do, you'll die.
And I also like the idea of like anger being something that drives to action, not to violence necessarily, right? Like there are things in this world that are truly like not okay. And you can't just go punch people because that doesn't solve the problem. We actually have to solve the problem. And that's way bigger and way harder than just like, I just got to go topple that.
So right? there's a conflict. Mr. Furious is I mean, I've kind of been feeling this for a while now, but Mr. Furious is going to get pissed at Shoveler when Shoveler becomes Gravedigger, right? Because he's like, you're not helping the team anymore. You're walking away from everybody. You're not fighting the good fight. We need you out there. And you're doing it for this crap, right? And so there's got to be some moment where like Shoveler and him both discover gardening. Like where...
Yes.
Where there's like a scene where the Shoveler and Mr. Furious are gardening somewhere.
Can Mr. Furious please be cutting a bonsai tree? I just want to see him have to have that patience of cutting a bonsai tree at some point.
Sure. There might be something there, but I'm just trying to make sure that we don't retread ground with Mr. Furious, because a lot of those jokes have already been done, right? So you got to be careful that whatever you're doing with him doesn't just feel like you're doing it again. It's not just impotence. It's not just like he's angry and he can't be, there's got to be something else there.
Right. I kind of want him to discover gardening through the process of eating like a really hot pepper and like that making him super angry, and like that it makes him feel like he's super empowered, but he can't get rid of the heat in his mouth by just being angry. Like he's stuck, right? Like it's not an impotence. It's you literally can't overcome this with your typical way of handling it.
Oh, okay. Here's a thought, maybe a thematic thought. Is part of the movie about how, unlike Myers-Briggs and other like personality tests, and even superheroes are sort of really, really archetypal. Like, hey, you're this. this is your power, this is your thing, this is who you are. Is this a story about how they're all going to change into different superheroes?
I like that possibility.
Like, you're the everyman, you're real people, which means you're not going to ever not be the shoveler, but you might also now be the gravedigger, and you might also now be the gardener, which you never thought you were going to be, which are these totally different aspects to you as a human being, and maybe even new powers you might find, right, in a sense. But, like, you're still you, but you're changing. Your identity.
Well, I also like that it says that you're not one thing. Like, you are not,
right,
whatever. You are a full person, which allows us to go outside of the cookie cutter of superheroes. I like it.
Right. So the thing we get, the advantage we get by having them all be everymen, is that they get to actually change. And so they get to actually change. Like, so Mr. Furious has gone through an impotence anger thing, right? And is he going to have to deal with pain? Is he going to be like, I mean, pain's maybe too easy and too connected, too easy of a hit, but like, is he going to have to just learn how to deal with pain and be like pain guy? Is there going to be, what's a thing that's sort of like the shoveler going to gravedigger and gardener, where it sort of all fits, but it's different things. Not just a melee warrior hero, but a different sort of side of him. What's the other side of Mr. Furious? Is it like I feel like acceptance of pain would be a very strong, different thing than Fury, right? Fury is I feel pain or I see pain coming and I'm angry, right? I'm going to fight against it. I'm going to be angry. So accepting pain is a decent chance of being sort of on the other side of that.
So is Mr. Furious now a like does he need to become a fitness trainer? Like embrace the pain, but use the like energy for this. But ultimately, he needs to learn to like go like fight at the UN or something, and like use his words and his passion for good instead of just like beating things.
Or, okay, well, I'm not sure. I kind of think I see where you're going, and I think I could put some of this together. Like, I don't know if I have an end game yet for him, but I could see a scene where, like, the whole, like, the bonsai tree thing is sort of like the watermelon thing from the last one, but instead of just being a one-off joke and this constant thing of, like, you're not giving it the time to do, like, the challenge is the challenge is specifically not that you have to, like, have Zen and to cut the bonsai tree. We're not doing that crap. Instead, it is take your rage and then expertly cut the bonsai tree.
Focus it. Yeah.
Right? Where you have to focus it in this way to sort of somehow, it's not that you're not able to have anger about something, to be, have impulse, but you can't let it override you kind of thing. How do you somehow take your anger and translate into something else? And maybe it's a little to the side. Maybe it's too one note of still anger, but there's maybe something there. I don't know. There's something there. And all then right, the Scott. Other guy we got to really figure out is we've got to figure out the Maharaja or
the Blue Raj.
The Blue Raja.
Yeah.
Fork man. He starts throwing knives.
Yeah, I don't know that his storyline is going to be as easy to come up with, to be perfectly honest. And I mean, his big thing was initially it was very secretive. It was hidden from his mother, who his mother ultimately finds out and then brings the good silverware to him.
Right. Which is sort of, like an acceptance of the hero kind of thing, acceptance of who he is kind of thing. He's got this weird, like, knife throwing thing isn't a part of who I am. I will only throw forks, right? And there's like a specific reason for that. He's all into his sort of backstory and all that. And I'm not even entirely sure what exactly he was basing his stuff out of. Clearly there's some Indian culture stuff going on there.
I mean, could he even be a character that we just take and he's just like, yeah, I'm done with that point in history, but now I'm on to this point in history. So I've got this whole new character from a different point in history.
I was wondering if there's something about, like, where India is or something currently in history, or after that point in history that he starts getting obsessed with and changes into some sort of personification of that.
Or does
So
he
I'm not
switch
sure
to
what his
like?
thing to the side is, but I mean, again,
Does he switch to, building buildings out of forks and concrete? Like, is that where he is?
construction man.
Well, like, there's that one movie, Wonderworks movie or whatever, about the guy who like builds buildings using just silverware and stuff, and then putting concrete around it. I don't know. That's where my mind's going.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, the skill's not silverware. The skill's throwing things.
That's
That's a
true.
skill, right? So that's the base skill that you can maybe transmute into something else. And he's got sort of a history thing going on. And really, the other question is, what would a guy like? What is Death Touch going to do to him? What's the thing that's going like? What's the death of Sphinx and Shuffler becoming Gravedigger and Mr. Furious having to learn about pain or focusing his anger or whatever it is? Like all these things are happening to the group, and this idea of maybe people getting hurt, right? Collateral damage being a problem, maybe is a thing. What is his response to all of that? What's the thing that's pinning him on that? Or do we kind of like Bowler, which again we've potentially still got Bowler Lady, we've got or the Bowler, we've
the
got
bowler.
Sphinx, we've got Invisible Boy, we've got
We've got
we've
the
got the
weapons
inventor,
guy,
the inventor
Hellerman.
weapons dude. Like all those guys are potentially still around to come back, and we can't. Bowler had the revenge arc, right? You
Yeah.
killed my dad. My dad's skull is in here, and that thing's done. That's a done arc, right? That's over. She don't got no more of that, at least. So there's a lot more characters, but if we can figure out what the third guy is doing, we could maybe have some semblance of where the story is going, and we could probably put together an idea of where it's going to end, and that would be a general idea with a lot of work needing to happen.
I think the important thing to learn here is that, after 40 minutes, we've kind of like got ideas for like two sort of arcs, maybe.
Yes, maybe being the key question or key phrase there.
And remember, we're just doing this as an exercise and for fun, but like we didn't have any idea we were going to talk about Mystery Men and trying to figure out a sequel to Mystery Men tonight. We just started at when the podcast started, and we're 40 minutes in trying to figure out what in the world do you do if you do a Mystery Men sequel, not knowing whatever property it's based off of, not knowing comic books super well, just knowing that movie just well enough to be like, I know what happened, and what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've definitely got a good starting place, and we've definitely made some good progress on this.
Well, I guess that could be it for this week. We could just say, hey, that's an attempt. That's a starting place of us trying to work through what a Mystery Men sequel will be like. And if people want to see more, they can ask. And if they never want to see that again, they can just stay incredibly silent.
I actually really like where we are with Shoveler. I like that. And I think we have ideas of where we can go with Furious that are actually okay. So I'm pretty happy with what we've kind of started the ball rolling in.
Yeah,
I agree.
Sphinx being dead and Death Touch. I mean, the one thing we're missing is a little bit more of the sort of like Captain Amazing brings the whole here's what a good guy you think is supposed to be, and then you see what he really is, and sort of all that side. Like we don't have some of that angle on things yet.
I'm not sure that we necessarily need that angle on things, because that was a lot of the arc of the first movie in general was, hey, here's this guy who's actually making the difference, but he's not really that good of a guy in the long run. And he ends up dead in the movie. Like, he's gone.
And I like that in this film, we're talking about Death Touch, who thinks he's a bad guy, who actually is just a guy who needs to be cleaned up or whatever. And like, like it's great. It's great.
Maybe that's it. He falls into the hole, which gives our characters the opportunity to do a bath of some kind on him. And he ends up not radioactive anymore.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, it's not that this is necessarily the best character arc or that this wouldn't change a lot in revision, but since you don't have anyone else who can do it yet, the Blue Raja is going to be the guy who figures out how to bathe him or whatever. I mean, you've got Bandage Man. I still think Band-Aid Man's the best new character. That is quintessential. You heal people, but you don't do anything but put a Band-Aid on it. You're useless in a sense, right? But you're not. You're going to actually be really important in some way, shape, or form. But, that's sort of that same arc from the first one with the character.
Does that mean Band-Aid Man learns to give medications that might actually save Death Touch in the end?
No, it's going to be more like Band-Aid Man's going to save everyone's life by bandaging them up so they don't get touched. He's going to save everyone's life by stopping an infection.
Yeah, I got you.
That's a thing. Or he's going to
Band-Aid Man starts making face masks.
Contact. Band-Aid Man is going to make it possible so that you can deal with Death Touch. You can actually touch him, or you could potentially start to heal him. That's where Band-Aid Man's going to start coming in.
Okay. Well, we'll see if we get back to this, friends. But for now, we're going to leave you with some suggestions. So tonight, guys, I actually want you to give us a superhero-themed suggestion that our viewers can go watch.
Wow. It's just coming to mind, so I'll just spit it out there. But I'm sick of Marvel. I'm tired of it, and there's some great stuff there. But I kind of want you to go. If you haven't seen it, or if it's been a long time, maybe just go revisit Richard Donner's Superman. Just the original, and by original I mean 70s, the 70s movie Superman the movie, with Christopher Reeve and that whole deal. Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. Give that movie a watch. Just go revisit that. That's and in particular, I'd like to highlight this. How the end of the character that is his Papa Kent, right? Papa Kent to Superman. The end of his character and how that's all done in the original Richard Donner Superman movie, in that storyline, versus how it's done in Man of Steel, which is the newest origin story iteration of Superman. Compare and contrast those two. I find the original Superman movie to be a far more poignant and far better exploration of what that means to the character. So give that a shot. Go check out the 1970s Richard Donner, the Superman movie.
Okay, and I'm going to recommend Special RX. It's a really cheesy, low-budget film about a guy who takes part in a drug test. They're testing a new drug, and starts to develop superpowers, or maybe not. And I enjoyed it the one time I watched it. I don't remember how much bad content is in it, but I thought it was a pretty clever take. At least the idea was good.
Good. My recommendation is going to be a little more simpler, and I know Jonathan will hate this, but I am going back to the Marvel Universe. And the only superhero movie that I've actually enjoyed recently has been Guardians of the Galaxy. Both 1 and 2 I found very entertaining, very fun, and of course I like the fact that it's set in space for some reason, and think that makes all the difference in the world. However, that is my recommendation for you at this point. So get out there and enjoy some superhero movies. And in the meantime, remember all the real heroes in your life who are actually making a difference.
Wow. Wow. Cool. All right. Well, thanks. Yeah. Bye.